Okay, folks, we're going to jump right into things. We're looking at chapter 1.9, and that is making and interpreting graphs and charts. And so let me just tell you from the outset, my main objective is to teach you three different kinds of charts here, and what's the difference, and when would you use them? And what kind of information do they show that's important? Okay, so why would you use a pie chart? So, and then I'll help you with another question at the very end that might help with some of your homework and maybe even the test. The first kind of chart is a pie chart, okay? And you'll notice here on the screen that a pie chart looks like a pie, okay? I mean, that's kind of basic, but that's the idea. It's shaped like a pie here, and and I'll say right off the bat that one of the key concepts is they're best for comparing the part to a whole. Okay, because when you think of a pie, you think of the whole pie, the whole circle here. And so very often they're really helpful. Like see the yellow here on the pie chart here I've got. Okay, so if I'm trying to figure out how much money I'm spending on, let's say I'm spending extra money on snack food, for instance, and this is my budget. If I've got this much right here that's yellow compared to the whole budget, the whole circle, I can say, okay, I'm spending, okay, some money on snack food, but it's not taking up my whole budget. So the key concept is pie charts. They look like a pie. Okay, that's why they're called pie charts. They're best for comparing a part to the whole. That's really important. You kind of get that idea. They visually show you parts, how they compare to the whole thing. Okay, and then they're also expressed as a percent. So very often they'll say, that looks like 5% of your budget is being spent on snack food. Okay, but that's how you would write them as a percent. And then for your own sake, if you're ever making a pie chart, and it should be done this professionally, there should be a small quantity of pieces. You'll notice in my chart I've got yellow, blue, purple, green, and red. So one, two, three, there's 5 colors. Okay, around that number is kind of ideal. Less is fine, but when you start getting into 8 or 9, 10, 15 different pieces, visually it becomes harder to compare the part to the whole because there's so many pieces, so it becomes kind of confusing. If you look at the bottom of my screen here, as I'm pointing here, I've got let's say a teacher said, this is how your homework, this is what your grade is in the class, and 60% will be based upon test, 25 will be based upon quizzes, and 15% will be based upon the homework. Okay, it allows you, if you just looked at that visually right off the bat, you go, this part right here, tests, compared to the whole grade is over 50%, 60%. It just visually, it shows you that a majority of my grade would be based upon tests. The part showing how that compares to the whole, okay? All right, next kind of chart, please make sure you freeze the screen and copy this down, is a bar graph, okay? A bar graph. And they are best over here on the right here. They're best for comparing a part. Please capitalize this and underline this and highlight this because you'll be tested on this. But it's also the key concept. They're best for showing how a part compares to another part, not the whole, okay? So if you look at my chart here, I'm talking about the average gas price per state. So if I had a bar graph showing how much the average gas price per state, and over here was the cost in this category. Over here on the left, this is the cost on this chart. They had a certain amount of money. Let's say it was $1, and this would be $2, and this is $3, and this is 4. Well, it's getting expensive here, 5, etc. Okay, and then over here I've got my states at the bottom, my Washington, Oregon, etc. All right. I can look at this chart, and if somebody asks you, well, which part or state in this case is the most expensive compared to the other parts, states, okay? You can look right over here at the blue one and go, well, gas is the most expensive in that state compared to the other parts, other states. Which state has the cheapest gas? Well, it looks like Alaska here in the far right has the cheapest gas. And if they ask you, well, how is Washington doing, say, average-wise? How's the state of Washington? I can go over here to the far left. Washington's gas looks like it's about above average. Okay, it's not cheaper than, but it's a little bit more expensive than average, looking at my chart. So, but for the most part, again, part to part, that's what we're comparing when we're using a bar graph. Visually, it makes that real clear. If you're giving a presentation for work and you want to show that your fast food restaurant is selling more hamburgers than McDonald's or Burger King or whatever, visually this is really a nice way to do that, to show how we're doing compared to other stores, colleges, restaurants, etc. All right. The third one, and this is the kind of the last one, is a line graph. Okay. And line graphs are called line graphs because usually they'll show the growth of something, how it grows in a line, and it kind of goes, and it can go any way, depends on how things grow. But the reason they call them a line graph is because there's lines, okay? They're shown in a line. Usually there's a line kind of showing how the growth is. Sometimes the growth will be just totally linear, which just stays the same over a period of time. And sometimes you have spurts, but it's using lines, okay? Now, please underline this and capitalize this and highlight this. They're best for showing change over a period of time. How things change over a period of time. Line graphs are really good for that. So let me just change colors here. Let's decide. Let's say that I was going to grow plants, and I got my little plants that I'm going to grow here, and these are my beautiful little plants. Okay, and I got a plant here, and these ones are the same size, but then I got one that's a little bit taller, and anyway, you can see that I'm a fabulous artist here, okay? So I got my plants, okay. And then I got one that's kind of really tall here, okay. All right, so let's say that I was doing an experiment to show if I gave 1 hour of sunlight a day to a plant, how much would it grow? If it had 2 hours of sunlight a day, 3 hours of sunlight, etc. Okay. And let's say that I found out that when I gave my plants, as far as growth in inches, how much it grows in inches over here on the far left, if I gave the first plant, I gave it just 1 hour of sunlight a day. Okay, so I'm going to change color just so it's a little bit clearer here. But let's say I gave it 1 hour of sunlight a day. All right, and it grows just this much. 2 hours of sunlight a day, and it still hasn't grown a whole lot more. But all of a sudden I get to 3 hours of sunlight. This is time, okay? I can see growth. 4 hours, a little bit more. I hit 5, and they got a lot of growth. This is a plant that likes sunshine, okay? So on my graph, it might look like something like this. If I take my color here, if I was regraphing this chart, in growth in inches, it might look kind of like this. The first 2 hours didn't grow very much. Then when it got to 3 hours, it started growing some more. 4 hours, there's a little bit of growth here. And then when we got to 5 hours, things really started taking off here on my chart. Let's say I continued that growth spurt at 6, 7, and 8. Okay, it's showing change over time, how something changes, and that's what a line graph is. Okay, so those are the three. Let me show you a scenario of a kind of problem that you might get. Okay, and so you can kind of look at. Again, if I ask you what kind of a chart this is, it looks like a pie with its pieces. It's a pie chart. Okay, and let's say that a family had a monthly budget, per month of $4,285. That's how much they could spend per month on everything. That's their total budget here, okay? And let's say that they spent 30% on food, 10 on gas, and 50% on housing. And somebody asks you, how much money exactly are they spending on gas per month? Okay, how would you figure that out? Well, I look over the gas, it's 10%, right? 10% is 0.10 as a decimal. If I do this, if I take their total here, 4,285, and I multiply that times 0.10, okay? That will tell me how much money, that's going to tell me actually in dollar signs, how much money they're spending on gas. If I want to know exactly how much money they're spending on food, it's 30% over here. So I would take my total again, 4,285. That's the total, that's the whole. Remember, pie charts compare a part to the whole. Out of the whole budget, if I multiply it by 0.30, that's 30%. That will give me in dollars how much I'm spending on food. Okay, so you're going to run into that on the test. You're running into it on some homework things as well. But that is the difference between a a um, a pie chart, which is this one here. Okay, compares a whole to a whole. A bar graph, which compares a part to a part, and a line graph, which compares a change over time. And I hope this was helpful.